In today's tutorial, we're going to put a little bow on and wrap up this inventory system by allowing the player to not only display the items that they're looking at in the shop, but even purchase and not be able to purchase an item. Hi, my name is Michael. Welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. Follow along and learn how to create your own ARPG in Godot 4 using GD script. All right, so welcome back. This is part 3. This is part 3 of our shopkeeper here that we're going to make. So previously we've created the shop user interface and we've set up a shopkeeper NPC with dialogue that is able to kind of open, and call the show and hide a menu. And the next step now is to just make this shop work, because we have a UI, but it doesn't pull in any data or any information, and it doesn't display anything useful. And of course, the player can't purchase anything from the shop. Okay, so we're going to have to do a little bit of work. We're going to load those items that the shopkeeper has as part of his settings. We're going to load those into the shop. We're going to update the items as the item details as we go through the list and hover them. Included in both of those steps, we're going to have to add a cost for the items because our current item data resource does not include anything about how much the item should cost. So we're going to add that. And then we'll be able to determine at that point if the player has enough gems to be able to purchase the item that they're viewing, and of course allow them to purchase that and add it to their inventory. So looking at the shop scene here, if I look at my shopkeeper, we've got the items that are part of his shop inventory. And what I want to do first is I want to update the item resource associated with these. So let's just go ahead, and I'm over here in my file system and got a lot of things expanded. Let's see. I want to find my items folder. I guess I scrolled past it because it starts with I. And in here, we've got a script for the item data. I'm going to go ahead and open this. So this item data class extends resource. Okay. So when we look at this, it has just about everything we need, but it's missing the information about the cost or the price that the item would be purchased for. And so what we'll do is we'll just add a new export variable here. I'm just going to add it right underneath the texture, I guess. So we'll export a variable that we can call the cost, I guess. And this will be an integer value. And we can set it to a default. Maybe 10 is appropriate. I mean, it's going to change for just about everything. But once we save that, if we go and look at all of our items here, so I'll open the apple, for example, we can see it has a cost of 10, and that might be fine. I'm going to go through and I'm going to update all of these items with a unique cost real quick. Now this is the gem resource. I'm using this as my currency, so I'm just going to say that it's worth 1. Okay, so I've gone through and I've added some values to each of these costs for each item. Okay, so now we're ready to use that within our inventory. Okay, so now I think the first thing we want to do now that we've got that set up is we want to make it so that our shop menu, these shop item buttons get populated with the correct information. So let's go ahead and work on these. And obviously I've got a few placeholders in here. Let's just open one of these shop item button scenes. And currently, our shop item button does not even have a script attached. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see, attach a script. And we'll go ahead and let it be in that shop menu, and shop item button's just fine. Now we'll give this a class name. And there we go. Now this shop item button doesn't need to do a whole lot. One thing that we want is we want it to be able to keep track of the item that is assigned to it. And this is going to be an item of type ItemData. Okay. And we'll also have just a singular function that we can call just to set up the button and make it look how we want to. So we'll say func, let's just call it setup item. And this needs to have that item data passed in. So underscore item of type ItemData. It's going to require that argument, can return void, and we'll go ahead and set our item value to whatever is passed in. That way we can reference it as needed. And then we just want to update the labels, right? We've got a texture and we've got a name label, and then we also have a cost. And so what we can do is if we look at these, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the label. Normally we would make an onReady reference to these, but because this is such a simple node, I don't see really a lot of benefit in doing that. So we'll just go to the label and we'll set the text equal to the item's name. So item.name, easy enough. And then we'll do the same for the price. And I'm just clicking and dragging, you don't need to hold down control. So price label.text, too many dots, equals item.cost, right? That new value we just added. And then lastly, we'll update the texture. So we can grab our texture rect here and set the texture equal to the item.texture. And there we go. Okay, so that's all the functionality we need on this custom button that we've got. Everything else that it does is inherited from the button class. And somehow I opened a whole bunch of stuff here. Let me close a couple of these real quick. Whew, a lot better. I wish I would remember to do that before I start recording. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our shop menu. And in order to actually use or populate that data, right, we need to pull it in and we need to call this setup item for each of the buttons as we create them. And right now, we're just viewing the buttons that are available here, I believe. So let's just look at our shop menu script and see what we've got going on. We've got a show menu and a hide menu, enable menu, play audio. Okay, we've got some unhandled input handling here and a ready function. But what we need is a function maybe now to populate the inventory. And so let's go ahead and create a function. I'm going to call it populate list or populate item or inventory list. So we'll just come down here. I don't really want it below the play audio. That's a less important function. So we'll make a new function here. Populate item list. And of course, this needs to have the items that we're going to populate the list with. So we'll have an array, right? Just like we've been doing of items. So items is an array of item data. Okay, there we go. And then all we really need to do is take this item data that we're going to pass it, and we're just going to iterate over each item, each variant in that array, and create a new shop item in our list of inventory there, right? And by what I mean by that is to replace these with an actual item that has the value set that we're pulling in. So let's go ahead and just do for item in items. I think that'll work. We'll create a new shop item. And actually, before we can do that, right, maybe we need a reference to that shop item scene. So let me just put a pass in there and let's go up top here. With our constant preload values here, let's go ahead and bring in, I want a copy of the shop item button. So I'm going to just go to the scene and say show in file system. It was right there. I didn't need to do that. But anyways, okay, now I'll just click and drag, hold control or command and drop it right there. Shop item button. Okay, now I can create instances of that scene. So we'll say variable shop underscore item, and this will be of type shop item button. And then this will equal, we just want to make a new instance of the shop item button. So shop item button dot instantiate. Now, from this point, we can go ahead and set up that button. So we can call the shop item that we just created and call the new setup item function and just pass in the current item that we're iterating over, right? This guy right here. Okay, so that's going to pass it in. It'll set it up. And then we need to add this to the proper place in our UI and maybe connect some signals. So where we want to add this, if we look at our shop menu, we want to add this to the shop item container. Okay, and we have made this, when we set up this UI, we did make this shop item container have a unique name. So when we go back to our script here, we haven't brought it into our onReady variables just yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to grab my shop item container. Okay, that's where we want to add this item. So we'll just go back down to populate item list function. Now we can grab that shop item container. And then what we want to do is add child dot add child or add spacer, not what I wanted. Add child. Okay, there we go. And just add, not the item, but the shop item, because that's the instance of the button we just created. Okay. And then we're going to connect to signals here. We'll do that in just a moment. For right now, we'll leave that off and let's go ahead and save this. And before this will work, we're not actually calling this populate item list function anywhere. And so what I want to do is I want to come up to my show menu. And after we've enabled the menu right about here, we need to populate the item list. And because our show menu is expecting this argument of the items, we just pass that right along. Okay. And in addition to this, though, I want to clear this list because this should work. But if we look at it right now, we've got these placeholder buttons. I want to remove those. And obviously, anytime this menu opens up, we need to remove them or any other buttons that might be in their place. Okay, so let's go back to the script. So before we test this, let's go ahead and create one more function. And instead of populating the item list, we'll call this one like clear list or something like that, right? So clear item list. Okay. And all this really needs to do is just go through each of the children of the shop item container and just queue free them. So this is simple. We'll say for C in, and then what is that thing called? The shop item container. Shop item container dot get children, just like that. We'll say C dot and queue free. There we go. Okay. So we're going to free each of those items, which just means they'll be deleted and removed from memory. So now let's add this clear item list function call in just a couple places really quick. Anytime we hide the menu, let's go ahead and call this. Okay. Because what that'll do is that'll just prep the menu for the next time it's shown. And then we can also call this the very first time we create the menu. So in the onReady function, we'll just call this in here. Oh, actually, look, hide menu. It's in hide menu, so we don't need to put it there. Okay, so at this point, I want to open up my shop scene and let's just run it. And let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, we'll fix any issues that we run into. So if I come talk to my shopkeeper. Oh, okay, we ran into a bug. That's all right. Let's go ahead and look at this. So right now it says invalid assignment of property key text with value of type integer on base class of type label. That's actually pretty obvious. I should have noticed this, but our cost is an integer and we can't set an integer as a string. So we just need to cast this as a string and we can use this little handy str. Okay. That'll just turn that into a string. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Let's stop the game and run it one more time. Hey, there we go. That's looking pretty good. We've got a nice list of items. All the items I dropped in, they each have a unique cost listed and associated with them. So I'd say that's a win. One issue that we have though, now that this menu is working, is even though we started this up, it didn't select it. And so I had to click before I could use the mouse input. So let's address that issue because that's going to be a pain for anybody playing on mouse and keyboard or on a gamepad, which is me. Okay, so that issue, we need to get the focus set onto one of these items. So let's look at our shop menu script. And when we have show menu, once we've populated the item list, we should be able to select an item. And so I'm just going to call a simple shop item container dot get child. We're going to get the first item. So here we provide an index. Okay. So we're going to get the first child. And then because we know this is a button, we can call that button's grab focus method, just like that. So now if we run the project again at this point, hopefully that'll do the trick and select the item for us. Yeah, there we go. Now I can move with the mouse. Okay. Nice. Looking pretty good. Okay, looking at the shop menu, what's the next thing we can do here? We've got the money up top. Let's go ahead and connect this as well so that we display the amount of money that we have here, because right now it's just showing a bunch of 9s and that is not true. And in order to do this, we're going to need to leverage our player inventory just a little bit, because the way I have my game set up is that gems are just an item in your inventory. And the method that we're going to use here to display these could be used elsewhere to display your currency if you want to put it in your player HUD and things like that. Okay, so let's hop in first to our shop menu. And let's make sure we have access to that UI. So I'm going to go to the top, and with our onReady variables now, I want to get a reference to that. So let's see, where did we put that guy? It's not in the details. It's not here. It's under this panel container. I mean, one way we could do this is just go to the scene and select it. There we go. Gems label. And we made this accessible by the unique name. So let's just go ahead and grab this in there. Gems label. Now, whenever we open our shop or show the menu, we should update the gems label. And let's just go ahead and create a function that will do that. We'll call it update gems. Okay, or you could call it gold or whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to come down here, just make a little function. Okay. What we want to do in the update gems is we really just need to take our gems label and set the text equal to something. We need to get a count of our gems from our inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out temporarily. And let's open up that player inventory script. Now, this was created a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I guess. And I believe, let's see, where do we have that script? It's going to be, it's actually in our pause menu, if I remember. Probably not the best place for it, but that's where it is. So pause menu, inventory, I guess because our inventory is in there. So we've got a script. What we want is this InventoryData script, okay? Now, if we look at this inventory, this is the resource that our inventory for our player is built on top of. And we've got our slots and we've got the equipment, and this handles saving and loading of all of that equipment. So we're going to need to interface with this a couple times today. And the first time is right now when we're going to be able to get the count of gems. But I want this function to be useful because if you remember, we look at our shop UI, we also have the number of whatever item we're selecting in our inventory. So I'd like to be able to make a function that can just let us pass in an item, and then the inventory data will say, okay, this is how many the player has, okay? So let's go back to that script. In here, we're going to create a function. I'm going to call it get item held quantity. So I'm just going to simply go to the bottom of my script here. So function get item held quantity or count. I don't know. I go back and forth with those terms sometimes, but. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in the item that we want to get the count of. So there will be an item of type ItemData. And then we will return an integer, right? So by default, we can return 0. And that'll make this function not give us a little red warning anymore. But then what we're going to do is we're going to go over each of the slots in our inventory and check to see if that slot contains this item that we're checking. And if it does, it'll return the quantity that we have associated with that item. Because if you recall, looking at our slot data, we do have a quantity in here. Okay, and that's increased as the player picks up items and decreased as they use them. So that should give us what we need. So going back to my inventory data script, let's just do this. We're going to go for slot in slots. Okay, so we're just going to go through each of our slots. And then we need to check a couple things. First, we're going to say, is this a valid slot? Because it might be null. If there is a slot in this item, then we'll say, does this slot have an item data? So we'll say if slot.itemData. Just check in to make sure we don't have any null values, and this will avoid bugs and potential little issues. And then lastly, we'll say, if we have an item data, is this the same as this one that we've passed in here, right? Is it the same item? So we'll say if slot.itemData equals item. Accidentally got that little thing in there. Finally, now we know that this is the one we want. Then what we can do is we can return the slot.quantity. Okay? Pretty straightforward function, just kind of some checks. I mean, we could just return this if we knew that it was always going to have slot, right? We could remove half of these if it weren't possible to have some empty slots. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Okay, I think I lost track of what we're doing. So let's go back to our shop menu. Okay, so we want to get the gem label text. Now I want to do one other thing here. I mean, we could just call that little bit of code directly. So how we would access that is we would get our player manager, and then we need to get the inventory data for our player, right? Because that's where we want to check against the gems. And then we need to call that function. What was it called again? Get item held quantity. And then we need to pass in the item we want, which needs to be gem. But you see how this is getting kind of long? We're going to be using this other places in the code. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. And I'm just going to make a little function here. And we'll just call it getItemQuantity. And this will return an integer. And then we can just return this. But of course, we need that item, right? So in here, we're going to have to say item of type ItemData. And then we can pass that item right along right there. Okay. So now we can just call getItemQuantity. But we need a way to have an access to that gem. That's a resource. We could plop that in there, but let's just go ahead and add that up here to our constants. So because this is an ItemData resource, we can just plop a reference into that. We'll call this a variable. We'll call it currency. This will be easier for those of you if it's not a gem, right? So our currency is a type of ItemData. And what I'm going to do is now I'll just say, I'm going to just preload this. Can I do it that way? I thought I could. Yeah, there we go. Hold control. And that'll just preload that, but it'll put it in this variable instead of a constant, because what we want is we want an access to this instance of the ItemData. Okay, so now we're going to come down here, and when we check to get our quantity, we can just pass in our currency like so. And why work, update gems, get item quantity, type item, and it says value of type int cannot be assigned. Oh, this is dumb. Of course not, right? Because we need to convert that to a string. This is the same issue we just had. Okay, cool. So we have update gems. We're calling this, right? Did we go ahead and let's just check. Yeah, we're calling it in our show menu. So if everything's going to work, then this value should be replaced by however many gems I have. And if we run the game, we'll find out that I'm a poor adventurer and I probably have no gems. Let's go ahead and just talk to the dude. Hey, it worked. It said 0. So now if oops, I don't want to do that. Let's run again. I don't know if I have a save game in here. What do I do when I load? What do I got? I've got a gem. Let's go ahead and gather some gems so that later in the demo we have some money. Yay, I leveled up. How many we got? 5? We're going to need more than that. $11. Oh man, I wish I had a lot more than that. Let's just do a couple more. 11's fine though. It'll work for demonstration purposes. 13. And maybe we can just drop some somewhere that we can pick up. Okay, let's go ahead and save our game in here. And now if I talk to him though, we should have some money. There we go, 15 gems. Cool, our gem count is now working. All right, now that that's working, let's go ahead and add the functionality that when we hover the item in the inventory or focus it, that it updates the details in our shop menu right over here, right? So whenever we focus one of these, we should update this information here. Now, in order to do this, let's look at our shop menu. We're going to need reference to a few more labels and values here. And so what we need, obviously, let's go back to 2D. It's a little bit easier. So we need to get like this label and 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 this texture. All those things. And we did already set them up so that they can be accessed by their unique name. So we've got the item image, name, description, price, and item held count. Okay. So going back to our script with those selected, I'm just going to drag and hold control and drop them in. And there we go. We've got our references. Okay. So we also need a function and a way to connect to these so that whenever we hover them, we can update the details. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple quick little methods, and then we're going to connect these to the focus signal of those buttons. So let's go down here and just at the bottom of our script, perhaps, we'll make a function for focused item changed. So let's see, focused item. Man, if I could spell, I'd probably have enough money. I wouldn't be trying to make video games. Okay. So this is just void. It doesn't need to do anything, but I do want to pass in the item here because whenever it changes, I need something to be able to know what the item is. So we'll just pass in the item data as an argument. And then all we're going to do in the focused item changed, we're going to connect to this signal from our button. So it's really going to be simple. We're just simply going to check if the item is valid because there might be a possibility that we get a null value or something in there. And then if so, then we're going to call this other function that we'll call update item details. Okay. And of course, this is going to want that item. And this function doesn't exist yet. So let's go ahead and create that now. So we'll say func update item details. And this item will, of course, be of type item data, just like the others, and return void. Okay. Now the update item details is the one that's going to look at each of those fields that we just brought in, right? The texture, the name, the description, and it's going to populate them. So let's go ahead and do those right here. So we'll have our item image. We'll update the texture on that, and that'll equal the item.texture. And then we can update the item name.text equal to the item.name. We'll just go through a couple of these, right? So the item, let's see, the item description.text will equal the item description. And then our price, let's see, price label, or no, we call it item price, not price label, item underscore price dot text equals, I'm going to go ahead and remember, we've got to convert this to a string. Now this is where we can use that get item quantity function again. So get item quantity, and we just pass in the item. Pretty straightforward there. And then let's go ahead and make use of some audio. We've got some audio. I want a menu focus. I don't think we brought in the menu focus sound effect. So I'm just going to come here. We've got a couple things. Where are they at? They're going to be in our UI folder somewhere. Well, I don't remember what it is, but I'll just use this little filter. It's called menu focus. And actually there's another one, that's menu select. Let's grab both of those. They're in the title scene audio folder. I'm going to reuse those suckers. Because of this, it'd probably be best to move them to a more common location, but there we go. Menu focus and menu select. So let's go ahead and just play the, this is on item focus change. So we'll call this menu focused or play menu focus. Okay. And actually this really probably belongs up here because even if there's not an item for that button, we can still play the sound effect. Okay, so let's see. I guess we got everything in here that we need, right? We should be updating all of the information within this. So let's go ahead and go to our shop. And in between little breaks in recording, I did go through and cheat my save game and gave myself 100 gems. Nice. 9 breach. Okay. Oh. It's not working. I guess we missed a critical step. We set up the function, but we never connected the button to this signal, right? So where do we have that? Let's see. Where do we create our buttons? That's on our populate item list. Here we go. Connect to signals. Okay, so one signal we need to connect to is the button's focus. So we'll go to the, let's see, shop underscore item, and then we've got a focus entered. .connect. Okay. And we'll connect to the update item details. And because this is expecting us to pass something in, it would be nice to just be able to put item here, but we can't do that. We have to do .bind. And then this bind is what allows us to pass arguments in to one of these callback handlers for our signal. Okay. So there we go. That should connect things up the way we need it. Now I'll run my shop again. Load the game and talk to my shopkeeper. And there we go. So now as I go through my inventory, it's updating. It's doing everything except in inventory. That does not seem to be working. Did we hook that piece up? Let's go ahead and close and let's look at our code. Oh yeah, we didn't do that. We didn't put that piece in there. So we just need to come here and we've got, what did we call that last little container? I can't remember what we called it. Item held count. So item held count dot text equals, and then we need to convert to a string because this is going to be a number, right? Oh, this is funny. Look at that. This is what I actually want for the item held count. And then the item price text should be the item dot cost. That's funny. So we actually had a bug there that I didn't notice as I was messing around. Okay, let's go ahead and run this yet again and test this out. Oh yeah, load my game. That's funny. I was like in the exact same spot. Okay, there we go. Check it out. I've got 5 apples in my inventory. Cost $10 to purchase one. It cost $600 to purchase a ninja suit, and I don't have any, and so on. And if we check our inventory, that those numbers check out, right? And have these drug to the corners just for that from the demo of that. Click and drag. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and save that. There we go. Okay, so now we're updating those descriptions. We have one step left to do to kind of finish at least the meat of this, and that is the ability to actually purchase one of these items. All right, so looking at our shop script again, let's go back to where we populate the item list, and we have one other signal to connect, and that's on our shop item when it is pressed. Okay, because when that button is pressed, that's when we want to try and purchase the item. So we'll connect to that, and we're going to need to make a new function. And we'll call this function purchase item. And we are also going to want to bind the item that we're going to try to purchase. So just like we've done here. Okay, so here we go. Let's take this purchase item. Let's copy that. And let's go to the bottom of our script and make another function. So purchase item. And I'm going to go ahead. Obviously, this needs the item data passed in. Not the item date. Okay, item data. Now, what is this going to do? When we try and purchase the item, one of two things could happen. Either we have enough money, we want to buy it and give it to the player, or two, we don't have enough money and then we want to notify the player. Let's handle the error case first, the not enough money. So I'm going to make a new variable, can purchase, and this is a Boolean, I guess. And this will equal, what we want to do is we want to check, like what we've done, we can get the item quantity of our gems, right, or our currency. And if that is greater than or equal to our item cost, right, the cost of this item, then this will be true. Otherwise, it'll be false. So we're just going to make a little Boolean that's true or false based off of the values there. And then we'll say if can purchase, and then we'll have an else clause. So in the else is where we'll handle the, hey, you can't buy this. You don't have enough money. Okay. What we want to do here, let's go ahead and play the error audio that we've got. Play audio. I think it's just called error. Yeah. And we can also play, remember we've got this animation player that has an animation for gems. I'm going to go ahead and save this. We haven't brought that in, I don't believe. So let's grab a reference to that. So many things. It's in our gems label. So let's just go to our shop menu and let's find that. There we go. So this animation player here, it's got this not enough gems shake animation. That's the one we want. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to call this the gem animation player. Maybe gems, plural. Okay, so down here, what we'll do is we'll say gems animation player dot play. And not enough gems. That's the one we want to play. One other thing I want to do, because it's possible that the player might like keep hitting enter to try and purchase it. I want to just go ahead and seek that animation back to the beginning so it restarts every time the player does that. So we'll just say gems animation player dot seek 0. That'll just bring us to the first frame or the very beginning of the current animation. So let's save this. Run our shop and try and buy something that we don't have enough money for. We have 100 gems, so I can't afford a ninja suit. There we go. I can afford an apple. Nothing happens because we haven't coded that yet, but I can't afford a ninja suit. Okay. Step 1 of that is complete. So then if we can purchase, what will we do here? In this case, we'll play a different audio. We'll play the, I think it's called purchase audio. And then we're also, now we need to add the item to the player's inventory, and we need to subtract the currency, right? The amount of gems that it cost. So I'm going to say, because we're going to reference the player's inventory and it's kind of nested, I'm just going to call this INV, and this is of type inventory data. Just going to grab a reference to that. So this is going to be the player manager dot, is it player inventory? What is it called? Yeah, inventory data is what it is. Okay, so we're going to grab a reference to that. And then we just need to add an item and use an item. We've already got built-in functions for that, so that makes it nice and easy. So we'll say add item, and of course we can add the item that we just purchased. And then we need to use item, and we need to use the currency, and we need to use the value, which is going to be the item.cost. Okay, that's going to pass that in, and it's going to use up some of the gems. And then because we've done that, let's update our gems so that that little bit of UI is reflected. That was actually really quick. Let's go ahead and test it out though. Okay, come up here. Oh wait, I gotta load my game. Okay, so now I should be able to buy an apple. Nice. And I have 5 in inventory if I buy it again. Oh, I'm not updating that, am I? 7. And let's just check our inventory. 7, sure enough. And I've got 2 potions and 3 rocks. Let's go ahead and buy some more from him. So if I buy a potion, nice. I can't afford another potion now, but I just got to spend all that dang money. So I'm going to buy some rocks. And there we go. It's updating. So let's address that one issue where it's not updating the quantity. That's not something I thought about, but we should be able to do that here. I can probably just update the item details on this item. Call that again. Let's just try calling that and see. And I'm going to just pass in the item. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let's give it a shot. I mean, we might just need to... Okay, so apple. Yeah, that worked. Easy peasy. That was pretty simple. And that's the benefit of, you know, breaking functionality down into each separate little functions, because then when you need to just do something again somewhere else, it's pretty easy to call. And voila. As far as I can tell, we've built a functioning shopkeeper with an inventory, shop inventory that ties into our player's inventory when we purchase it. And a pretty cool feature. Obviously, we're not able to sell items just yet, but the ability to buy is kind of a bare minimum for a shop. So I hope you guys have learned a lot following along with this little mini series. It's been a little while coming. I kind of was on a hiatus. So I'm happy to be back and excited to continue moving forward with this, as well as some other little projects. Subscribe to the channel if you're a new follower and you haven't yet subscribed. That helps me grow, and of course keeps you notified when I have new tutorials out. And thank you to my Patreon subscribers. And as always, we'll see you next time.